Joining us right now, the chairman of the House Subcommittee on National Security, House Freedom Caucus member, Congressman Ron DeSantis of Florida. Congressman, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
What do you make of that tough talk from the president there? Interesting to hear him say, look, you know, we're looking for fair trade. And right now it's nothing, it's anything but.
Well, he does have a point there, Maria. As you know, there are restrictions in terms of what we can trade into Japan, selling our products into Japan. And that's been true for a long time. So I think he's got a good point there. And I think it would be great if American businesses had greater access to Japanese markets.
And how do you open those markets? I mean, the auto market comes to mind, right?
Yeah, well, as he had mentioned, he's been negotiating with Prime Minister Abe, and he's acknowledged that Abe's a pretty tough negotiator. But I think that the president is, he's really been focused on America first, which doesn't mean America doesn't trade or isn't involved internationally, but making sure that these agreements and these relationships benefit the United States. So I think this is a very high priority for him, and I know there's going to be a lot of negotiations, but I think the president, this is something that he's zeroed in on.
Congressman, I think it's really interesting that right now, as the tax reform debate is heating up, that he's over on the other side of the world talking about trade. I think they're really complementary in some ways as he's talking about the agenda, moving, putting America first, bringing jobs back. Are you guys going to be talking about how these two things are going to work together to really bring jobs back to America?
Well, there's definitely a synergy there. The more access we have to markets like Japan, the better it is for American businesses. And then also the proposed tax changes, really major restructuring in how we do taxation on the corporate side. Instead of repelling capital, we'll now be attracting capital with an internationally competitive corporate rate. You also have a territorial tax system, which will allow for foreign earnings to be repatriated. So I think they both do go hand in hand, and I think it makes America a much better place to do business.
Congressman Mike Block here. So there's been a lot of talk yesterday on social media about how the president was talking to Japanese officials about bringing more production of Japanese vehicles, for example, here in the United States. Already, say Toyota has like a very large plant in Kentucky. There is a lot of presence there. Are more arrangements like that a priority for this administration and for Congress to bring production back to the U.S., work with the Japanese to bring more of that in? We've seen a lot of that. I was wondering if there's more coming.
Well, that's been the president's bread and butter. He wants jobs to stay here. He wants to bring businesses here so that there can be more jobs here in the United States. And if you look at what he's done already with a really major, probably the biggest regulatory rollback we've seen in a generation, that has been very helpful. I think our tax changes will also be very helpful. And then some of it is he's going to be negotiating with some of our trading partners. And so this is really Trump looking out for just the blue-collar workers, and that's something that matters a lot to him.
Well, Congressman, something that the president didn't mention on the campaign trail that certainly Shinzo Abe knows is the vast majority of cars that are sold in the United States are actually assembled here. So there's this mutually beneficial relationship, and President Trump continuously crows about the stock market and all-time highs. One of the reasons for that is the fact that Japan's economy is doing much better. So, again, this is just maybe we don't even need to see anything come out of this meeting other than just these two leaders congratulating one another.
Well, they definitely have a good relationship. I think the president's done a really good job. The Indo-Pacific region, Japan, India, Australia, the United States, I think we're stronger than ever with those nations, which is good for our security. I think it's also good economically. But it's interesting with the domestic production, and you're absolutely right. Where do some of the foreign-based auto manufacturers decide to go within our country? They tend to go in states in the Sun Belt, in the Southeast, where you can do business, and they can do business better. So you see Tennessee, you see South Carolina, you see those places where they've really been able to create a lot of jobs in that sector.
Congressman, we want to move on to two issues. Obviously, the church massacre this morning is the breaking news. 26 people dead, a killer opening fire at that church. Do we know anything in terms of what the motive is, who this person is? What will lawmakers be doing at this point in terms of the hunt?
Well, we've heard some scattered things. I think the one thing that I've heard that's been interesting, just because we tend to get in a debate about this guns issue or that guns issue, is that he had been convicted of a domestic violence offense. So that would make him a prohibited person under federal law for owning or possessing a firearm. There are reports he may have been dishonorably discharged from the U.S. military, which would also be a knockout blow for owning or possessing a firearm. So I think that this guy's had some serious problems in his past. What his motivation is, I haven't been able to confirm anything now, but he does have social media accounts. They are going to be going through that. So I think we'll hear something very soon. I don't think this is going to be a Las Vegas shooter situation where even all these many weeks later, the authorities have very little to go on in terms of his motive.